biggest questions we want answered in week 1 of the SEC. Talking time is over. The spring and fall practices have come and gone. SEC Media Days has passed. We're done with the transfer portal. It's closed. And even though we're not going to stop arguing with fan bases on Twitter, certainly we're done letting the games be decided on paper. They will commence on the gridiron. And if these questions are answered very early on in the season, we might have a better indication about what direction these teams are headed and what could be a year to remember for the SEC. So what's going on, SEC Unfiltered? It's Cole Thompson here. Thank you for making us our #1 source for all things SEC this past offseason, but we got the regular season ahead. So make sure you tell your friends, your family, your mortal enemies, best of bros, and college football aficionados everywhere about this channel, because this is your new home for all things SEC. Download the podcast version of the show wherever you get your podcast listening systems. Follow us on the social channels, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at SEC Unfiltered. If you want to keep up to date with everything I got going on, it's at Mr. Cole Thompson on Twitter and Cole_Thompson on Instagram. And for your #1 source of all things SEC, make sure you visit SECUnfiltered.com. This episode is brought to you by RHOBACK. Look good, feel good this upcoming fall at RHOBACK.com by using the promo code SECU for 20% off all joggers, polos, hoodies, shorts, much, much more. Look good, feel good on Saturdays and game days. RHOBACK.com, promo code SECU. Now, not every question in Pandora's box that we call the SEC regular season will be answered week 1. Like, is Nico Iamaleava the second coming of Hendon Hooker? Probably not going to get that answer. Like, are we going to see Kentucky beat 10-win season? Probably not going to figure that out against Southern Miss. But these questions are detrimental to team success in what could be a year to remember for SEC play. Like, has Payton Thorne improved? Payton Thorne last year joined the Auburn Tigers late in the process. He was a spring transfer portal addition, so he didn't get to go through those 15 allocated practices that are essential mostly for quarterbacks than anyone else. And the results showed on the field. Definitely underwhelming last season. Couldn't throw for over 2,000 yards, 16 touchdowns against 10 interceptions. There was a lot of question marks. Now, with that being said, we can't put all the blame on #1. Even though he was the #1 reason for some downfall, he wasn't the only reason. The offensive line was going through a bit of a mix. Weaponry, it wasn't as polished and pristine as we wanted it to be. The play calling was askew at times. Well, the good news is that the now supporting cast for the leading man has been upgraded. They added new players in the transfer portal at wide receiver, like Keandre Lambert-Smith, like Robert Lewis out of Georgia State. They still have Rivaldo Fairweather, who is a cyborg-type tight end across the middle of the field. They also upgraded the offensive line. Percy Lewis, who last year was a stud at Mississippi State, comes on in and is now your left tackle. And more importantly, you've had an entire offseason to learn the new playbook underneath Hugh Freeze, who has catered this offense towards Payton Thorne's strengths. And that's not even mentioning the freshmen that have been a part of the system that already are making highlight plays after highlight plays. Cam Coleman may end up being the best wide receiver we are talking about in the SEC by the season's end. Perry Thompson might end up being a household name on the Plains before midseason. And if you have those type of weapons, well, you only got to see progress. The point of the matter is that regardless of whatever job you work in, plumbing, broadcasting, you can even go with accounting, if you don't show improvements, eventually you will be shown the door. And there are players waiting in the wings at Auburn that could eventually see some playing time, like Hank Brown or Holden Greener. So what are we going to see from this offense led by #1 going into year 2? Is it a little bit more similar to what we saw during his time at Michigan State? Is it a little bit more similar to what we saw during his time when he was able to lead the Spartans to a Peach Bowl appearance? Are we going to see more regression? And even though it is Alabama A&M, I'm going to go ahead and say that Auburn wins this game without any doubt. No hesitation whatsoever. But with the RPOs, the run design options, with the ability to hold the football, get your wide receivers open, what version are we seeing? Because if there's more progression surrounding Payton Thorne, well, then there's probably more results that are going to end in victory rather than defeat. This is an Auburn team that on paper should be able to see progress going into year 2 of the Hugh Freeze era. I won't be shocked if they're a 9-win team. I also won't be shocked if they're a 7-win team, because if they hold out hope that Payton Thorne is finally going to figure things out. What does this offense look like with a full offseason, better weapons, and a play call system that caters more so to Thorne's strengths? Let's also talk about Florida playing against Miami this weekend. I personally believe that there's one main element that will either make or break the Gators. Do they have enough horses in the stables to run? That's plain simple. I believe Graham Mertz is a top-tier quarterback in the SEC. And what I mean by that is we have already gotten under the wraps that he is probably not your favorite quarterback. Of course, if you have a guy like Jalen Milroe, Jackson Dart, Carson Beck, even Quinn Ewers, you would definitely not take Graham Mertz over him. But you would definitely say he's at least middle. You would say he's the Raising Cane's. It's not everyone's favorite fast food place, but you're not going to complain if Raising Cane's is on the menu. If that's what they're serving at dinner, you'd be okay with it. And you'd be okay with having a guy like Graham Mertz as your starting quarterback going into 2024. But what about the weaponry? I think Trey Wilson is the X factor in this game. They're going to utilize him however they see fit. Quick slants, pitch options, vertical passes down the field. And so if they get him involved very early on in the process, if he's able to separate, show why he is the most underappreciated player in the SEC this upcoming fall, well, then Miami can't do a lot of the things they want to do. Miami offensively has the better line. Defensively, they have the better line. But there are some question marks when it comes to the secondary. So you can't send your linebacker on blitzes if you don't take away number 3, because if he works the middle of the field, that's a first down pickup. You can't play back if you're unable to go ahead and keep the ball in front of you. And also, what about the other weapons? Shamir DK comes on over from Wisconsin. That was a relationship that was formed 2 years ago when these two were in Madison. Elijah Badger comes on over from Arizona State. Pure speed at the outside. That's a dude that can easily fly down the football field for a massive 20-plus yard gain. And what if your offensive line is better than advertised? You know, we see some of the names that were brought in this past offseason and also some of the names that are upgrading. How do you feel about a guy like Brandon Crenshaw Dickinson taking on over at right tackle? How do you feel about Austin Barber now being your starting left tackle? How do you feel about your center position? How do you feel about your tight end role, 12 personnel? If you have enough weapons that are going to be able to keep the offensive momentum going, then I think Florida stands a chance. Their defense is going to be questionable, but there are questions as well when it looks at Miami. And again, this is the first game. We know what it's like for a first-timer to step on in as a transfer portal quarterback and try and make headwaves in a game that you're probably supposed to win. We saw that last week in Dublin, Ireland. Do we see that with Cam Ward down in one of the most hostile atmospheres in the swamp? Number 3, who's the number 1 target for Connor Wigman? Wigman is going to be, I think, a stud this year. People are talking about him in College Station as an unknown anomaly. And yes, you would be right. That's a good thing, though, because of what you don't know is probably going to play in your favor if you are an Aggie. They're going up against one of the best secondaries in all of college football. Notre Dame has studs. They have dudes. They have elite talent. Benjamin Morrison is a first-round cornerback in the NFL draft next year. Xavier Watts is an all-American thumper that will deliver the crushing blow and certainly be willing to draw the ball loose. That way you get the turnover across the middle of the field. So who can be that security blanket for Wigman when he needs it most? Last season, you saw it was Ainias Smith. And if it wasn't him, it was Noah Thomas. Those two were speaking the same language at the very start of the year, to where when you lost him in week 4 to Auburn, you saw the production diminish for Thomas. Is it him again? That's a mismatch nightmare. 6'4" on the outside that can win contested catches, can easily force defensive backs to have to play back in the red zone, because if you play too close, he's going to beat you at the line of scrimmage. But they brought in some really talented names this offseason. Cyrus Allen comes on over from Louisiana Tech. How does he factor in? Is he the new Ainias Smith? Moose Muhammad, number 7, been in the system for years. Does he finally have his breakout moment? New offense underneath Colin Klein. They're going to get the ball to their playmakers. That is essential skill number 1. So is he going to be a factor into this mix? How about getting tight end play? Trey Watson comes on over from Fresno State, has had a really good camp according to reports that are coming out of College Station. And you also get back Donovan Green. Donovan Green was the best tight end on the field in 2022 and one of the big weapons for Connor Wigman when he took over for Max Johnson and Haynes King down the stretch. Does he start having that same relationship once again? And what about the newcomers? Ernest Campbell, Isaiah Williams, pure speed. You look at both of these two, they know how to fly down the football field. They would be speeding in school zones. Is one of them going to step up? And they may not have to be able to be a factor on first down or second down or even find their way into the end zone. Being a security blanket means when the big play must happen, you have to convert on a 3rd and long. You trust that Noah Thomas is going to be open. You trust that across the middle of the field, you got a Trey Watson. You trust that you're going to be able to target on a quick 7-yard out route a Donovan Green. And if one of those players step up, you're moving the ball. You're keeping momentum at an all-time high. You are finding ways to keep Notre Dame's offense off the field. You are allowing yourself to find a way to get to scoring position. And if you walk away with 3 points, that might end up being enough if you are the Aggies. This is a major test for, I think, A&M, not because of it's against Notre Dame, but because this might be the best secondary that you face all season. You look at what you got right now going on in LSU, there's question marks. You look at Florida, there's question marks. You look at Mississippi State, you look at Arkansas, there are question marks. South Carolina is probably second when it comes to the Fighting Irish. If you're able to hold your own against Notre Dame at home, imagine what you can do against teams like Auburn on the road or against South Carolina on the road. If you have a great matchup and find that number one target for Connor Wigman, you are setting a standard down at College Station. And maybe we're talking about the Aggies in a different light. Number 4, what about Alabama's offense? Alabama is going to have, finally, I think, a playbook that caters towards Jalen Milroe's strength. Jalen Milroe was awesome last year. Whenever Tommy Rees decided to finally relinquish the play calling and say, we're going to do what works for number 4, you saw promise. You saw the potential. You saw what was so captivating about this kid when he was coming on in from Katy, Texas. And he led you to a college football playoff appearance. He led you to an SEC title game. But sometimes having a square peg in a round hole doesn't really work. You can try as best as possible, but there are going to be some glitches. And you noticed that at times last year, especially early on in the Tennessee game. You notice it early on in the LSU game. You notice it at times in even the SEC championship and certainly in the Rose Bowl against Michigan. Well, this is an offense that I think absolutely screams what Jalen Milroe does best. Kalen DeBoer knows how to get the best version of quarterback play and the best version of receiver play, which is why I think that this is going to be a great matchup against Western Kentucky because if you will see the promises. I thought Jalen Milroe last year was great with the home run ball. I thought he was great with the singles. But the part that where you want to see him improve is the intermediate. I've always heard this rumor, and I don't like to go ahead and compare different sports, but if you're able to hit singles and homers, that's only great in certain facets of being a quarterback. You want to always be the consistent playmaker that's going and winning on the doubles and the triples, the 18-yard comebacks, the 15-yard slants, the 12-yard post patterns. That's the area of the field where you want to see success. That's an area of the field where I want to see Alabama thrive this upcoming year. You get Jeremy Bernard that comes on in. Maybe he is the next Jamison Williams. Already has a great relationship with Calvin Shepard, the wide receivers coach. Already has a great relationship with Kalen DeBoer playing in his offense last year at Washington. I think that he could be your number 1. I think that he could easily be the guy that you find your way into the end zone 4 or 5 times every single game simply because of that lightning in a bottle speed. But you know what I really want to see? And a lot of people are going to say Ryan Williams, the 5+ phenom coming out of high school. Absolutely, he will be a factor by the season's end. But who's that number 3 receiver? You got a bunch of veterans still around. Yeah, you lose Isaiah Bond. Yes, you lose Amari Niblack. And yes, you lose Jermaine Burton to the NFL draft. But the cupboard is not bare in Tuscaloosa whatsoever. What about Kendrick Law? What about Kobe Pretense? What about Emmanuel Henderson Jr.? Do one of them step up? Because of now, they love to throw the football in Washington's offense that's now headed down to Tuscaloosa, Alabama. There were 3 receivers last year that all nearly put up 1,000 yards as Michael Penix Jr. went his way to New York City and an eventual national championship. Who's that third guy? Because Ryan Williams eventually will take over. He will be a major factor for this offense. Jeremy Bernard is not going away quietly. But if you get that third guy, that extra weapon to where you can't double team a Ryan Williams, you can't take away a Jeremy Bernard, because if you do, you're leaving number 1 open or you're leaving number 6 open. And that's 6 points. That's an easy score for you. How does that happen? Also, what does this rushing attack look like? You have Justice Haynes. You got Jam Miller. Do you have a running back that separates themselves in this game very early on? Also, more importantly, do you have a running back that you can trust to tote the rock on short yardage situations that will keep the drive alive, that will keep your team on the field, that will keep this offense humming at the right time? I know it's Western Kentucky, but you got to match up on the road in 2 weeks against Wisconsin. I would love to see them set the standard in this game so it doesn't have to trickle on over when you travel to Camp Allen and Madison. And lastly, LSU's defense. What do you look like? I have no doubt that LSU's offense is going to be fine. In fact, I am putting money down right now that we will still see one of the best passing attacks in all of college football residing in Baton Rouge. I have no doubt that we will have great questions and also stellar answers when it comes to this rushing attack. Yes, Did you lose a Heisman Trophy quarterback that can easily run it up the field for 1,000 yards a season and find his way in the end zone for 6 points? You did. But that does not mean that you are not good at quarterback. No, Garrett Nussmeier is going to be fine. In fact, I think the Nuss Bus, if you were a betting man right now, should be a favorite to put a little bit of money down in Vegas to make it to New York City. He's got the weaponry. He's got great tight end play. Mason Taylor, they bring in the freshman, 6'5". You also have Xavier Thomas on the outside. You got CJ Daniels. That was a 1,000-yard receiver last season at Liberty. Big reason why the Flames were making it to a New Year's Six bowl game. And Kyron Lacy. Kyron Lacy will finally have his moment to shine in the sun. And according to reports coming out of Baton Rouge, these two are singing the same language. They are speaking the same gumbo dialect. They are right on the money, and I expect to see it thrive in Las Vegas this upcoming season, especially this upcoming Sunday. But the defense, where you at? Last season, LSU's defense allowed 6 yards per play. That can't happen. That can't happen because of this is not a team that you believe can make it to the college football playoff. That can't happen because it's LSU. LSU, there is a standard about defense. And in years where they were able to win the national title, they didn't always have elite play, but they had damn good play. And I've already made this clear. Sometimes the teachers are better than the students. And oftentimes, I would rather have a great teacher and a mild-mannered student to where I can boost their grade up by two letters, rather than have a student that's already a B-plus type of player and not be able to improve because the teaching is not that great. That was the difference between this offseason, for my opinion, when it came to what LSU lost and what LSU gained. They didn't bring in a lot of great transfers. Certainly, there are some question marks at safety, at cornerback, defensive line. You don't know what you're going to get in the on-field trench play. But you have the right teachers. You have the right people at the helm directing what direction to go into. They're not going to find a better defensive line coach in the country, in my opinion, than Bo Davis. He knows how to get the best version of play. You just watched this last year. 2 3-star talents went in the top 40 picks and were staples of a Longhorn team that went to a college football playoff berth. You have the right linebacker coach and the right defense coordinator in Blake Baker. Tyron Hopper was a 3rd-round pick. And now we got number 7 being donned by Harold Perkins. That's a guy that's going to be a human highlight reel. I'm going to call him the Tasmanian Devil because if he is going to be everywhere as a wrecking crew, you're going to watch him just spin around and just take down quarterbacks, wide receivers, tight ends across the middle of the field. And if he actually does well at linebacker, not as an edge rusher, but as an actual linebacker, blitzes, playing in space, being able to defend the run, well, that takes away another element. And I think that the secondary is going to be better underneath Corey Raymond. So you have the right teachers in the building. And what if, again, against this USC offense that speaks offense, literally, the one thing Lincoln Riley has always done is spew out formations that are going to score a lot of points. What if they end up puking up minimal success? What if they're just an average type of offense this year and you don't see them take that next step forward with Miller Moss or with the transfer from UNLV? What if Zachariah Branch has a sluggish game? And what if it's because not USC's offense failed to deliver, but LSU's defense did? You're going to see this actually end up being, I think, a double-digit win for the Tigers in Sin City. I would double down on black and say that the Tigers come out with a statement win in this game, and if their defense does deliver, what are we talking about at this point? A team that maybe goes 10-2, finds their way into the college football playoff, and if their offense is as advertised, are they a team that you want to face on Saturdays in a winner-take-all showdown? I wouldn't bet your money on that one, and I certainly wouldn't doubt LSU can't get to that level. So let me know in the comment section down below. What other questions do you want to see answered this upcoming weekend? Is there one that I missed? Was there one I was right on the money about? Is there one that you want to see moving forward? Is this a series you want to do every single week? Download the podcast version of the show wherever you get your podcast listening systems. Follow us on the social channels, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at SEC Unfiltered. Follow me on social media at Mr. Cole Thompson. And to keep up with the #1 source for all things SEC, visit SECUnfiltered.com. I'm Cole Thompson. Until next time, folks. Later.